It started with a problem the Germans were not supposed to solve. After World War I, the Treaty of Versailles had banned Germany from building heavy artillery. But Germany was already preparing for the next war. In secret collaboration with other countries like Sweden, German engineers laid the groundwork for new weapon systems. One of the most famous results was the 8.8-centimeter Flak gun, a weapon that would earn a fearsome reputation as both an anti-aircraft and anti-tank system. The Flak 88 didn't begin as a tank killer. It was designed in the early 1930s by the German arms company Krupp as a response to the growing threat of modern bombers. Aircraft in the 1930s were faster, could fly higher, and carried heavier payloads than ever before. Germany needed a high-velocity gun that could bring them down from the sky. The result was the Flak 18, Flak being short for Flugabwehrkanone, or aircraft defense cannon. It was a heavy-towed artillery piece with a long barrel, and it fired shells at a blistering speed of over 800 meters per second. Its range was over 14,000 meters vertically, meaning it could hit targets flying well above 30,000 feet. That made it one of the most powerful anti-aircraft guns of its time. But the story didn't stop there. Engineers improved the original Flak 18 design, creating the Flak 36 and Flak 37. These variants were more modular, easier to transport, and could be broken down into parts for towing, crucial for rapid redeployment. They also included better fire control systems and could be used with optical rangefinders for greater accuracy. The Germans built thousands of them. By 1945, over 20,000 Flak 88s had been manufactured in total, and their versatility meant they were deployed across nearly every front where Germany fought. The turning point came in the Spanish Civil War. German military observers saw their Flak 88s being used not just to shoot at planes, but to destroy enemy armor and fortifications. The gun's flat trajectory, high muzzle velocity, and armor-piercing shells allowed it to penetrate even the thickest tank armor from long distances. When World War II began, this unintended use became standard practice. German commanders quickly learned that the Flak 88 could be devastating against ground targets. Nowhere was this more evident than during the early Blitzkrieg campaigns in France. French tanks like the Char B-1 and British Matilda II were heavily armored and initially invulnerable to most German anti-tank guns. But the Flak 88 could destroy them at over 1,500 meters, far beyond the range of return fire. Crews began setting up the guns in ambush positions, hidden in hedgerows or behind buildings. When enemy tanks rolled into range, the 88s opened fire with devastating effect. Entire tank units were shredded before they even knew what hit them. British tank crews started calling them 88s and feared them more than any other German weapon. In North Africa, the Flak 88 gained mythical status. General Erwin Rommel, the Desert Fox, made extensive use of the gun during his campaigns with the Afrika Korps. Against British Crusaders, Matildas, and later American Shermans, the Flak 88 proved unstoppable. Rommel often used them in defensive lines with their low profile and powerful punch, making them perfect for desert warfare. He once wrote, "The 88 mm is our salvation. It kills tanks at over 2,000 meters and aircraft at 10,000. In several battles, including the famed fight at Halfaya Pass, small groups of 88s held off entire armored assaults. What made the gun so deadly wasn't just its firepower, it was its flexibility. The same gun that could bring down a high-flying bomber could also penetrate 100 millimeters of steel from more than 1,000 meters away. Its standard anti-tank shell could pierce even the front armor of a Soviet KV-1 or a British Churchill. Later models, like the Flak 41, increased muzzle velocity to over 1,000 meters per second, making them even more lethal. The Germans also developed armor-piercing shells with tungsten cores, and high-explosive anti-tank rounds for extra effectiveness. Flak 88 batteries were often combined into large anti-aircraft nests defending key cities, rail lines, or industrial areas. Berlin alone had hundreds of 88s arranged in concentric rings of fire. Some were placed on concrete flak towers, giant fortresses bristling with guns. American and British bomber crews dreaded these defenses. Even if a bomber escaped the flak, the exploding shells filled the air with lethal shrapnel. One Allied pilot said it was like flying through a sky full of knives. A direct hit could rip a 4-engine bomber in half. By 1943, the Germans began mounting Flak 88s on self-propelled carriages. The most famous of these was the Nashorn, or Rhinoceros, a tank destroyer armed with the 88mm Pak 43, a direct descendant of the Flak 88. These mobile guns gave German forces even more flexibility in tank battles. They could shoot and scoot, striking Allied tanks from long distances and then relocating before counterfire arrived. The gun was also mounted on trains, boats, and even armored half-tracks in some desperate improvisations. One little-known fact is that the Flak 88 was so effective that the Allies tried to copy it. The British developed the QF 3.7-inch AA gun, which had similar characteristics, but it was rarely used in the anti-tank role. American forces stuck with the 90mm M1 gun, but many U.S. tank crews reported feeling outgunned by the German 88. They respected it deeply, and some even feared it irrationally. In post-war interviews, tank crews frequently mistook almost any German gun for the dreaded 88. Such was its psychological impact. Another surprising fact, the Flak 88 wasn't limited to Germany. The weapon was exported or captured and used by multiple countries. Spain, Finland, and even China operated 88s after the war. Some remained in service well into the 1950s. In Yugoslavia, Tito's partisans captured several and used them in both anti-air and artillery roles. In one case, an 88 was used to destroy a reinforced bridge from 3 kilometers away with pinpoint accuracy. The shell hit a structural joint and collapsed the span in seconds. Despite its success, the gun wasn't perfect. It was heavy and required a large crew, up to 11 men for full efficiency. Setting up the gun took time, and while it could be towed, it wasn't fast. If overrun, 88 crews often had to abandon their guns. Later in the war, when Allied air superiority made movement dangerous, many 88 batteries were destroyed in place. Still, the gun's influence persisted. The Panther and Tiger tanks used variants of the 88mm as their main armament. The Tiger I mounted a version that could penetrate 120mm of armor at 2,000 meters. Allied crews soon learned to avoid open ground when they knew Tigers were near. The lethality of the gun on tanks mirrored the effectiveness of the original Flak 88 in the field. Even after the war, the Flak 88 left its mark. NATO analysts studied its performance closely, noting its versatility and the effectiveness of its long-barrel design. Some Cold War-era artillery pieces were influenced by its principles. Surviving examples can still be seen in museums and memorials across Europe. Often they stand silent but imposing, a reminder of the devastating force a well-designed weapon can bring to the battlefield. The Flak 88's reputation has even outlived many of the battles it fought in. In movies, video games, and documentaries, it continues to appear as the iconic symbol of German firepower. It represents precision engineering, adaptability, and raw destructive power. It is one of the few weapons of World War II that earned respect from both sides of the war, not just for what it did, but for how it changed the way wars were fought. It's easy to see why the Flak 88 became such a legend. It began life as a solution to a problem Germany wasn't allowed to have. It evolved into one of the most feared weapons of the 20th century. It was used on every front, against every enemy, and in every terrain. It killed planes, tanks, trucks, bunkers, infantry, and ships, and it did so with terrifying efficiency. While many weapons of the Second World War have faded into footnotes, the Flak 88 remains one of the best remembered and most studied, not because it was glamorous, not because it was beautiful, but because it worked. In war, that's often all that matters. The Flak 88 didn't win the war for Germany, but it made the road to victory much longer and bloodier for the Allies. It remains a symbol of military innovation born from restriction, and how necessity can turn one weapon into many. From the skies of Berlin to the deserts of El Alamein, the echo of its thunder still lingers in the pages of history.